In a small, quiet town blanketed by snow, a night that began with the sound of tires screeching quickly turned into something no one could forget. A truck sped through the icy streets, its driver struggling to keep control. The sound of a thud shattered the stillness, a sound that would change everything for a boy named Luke. At just 5 years old, Luke had grown used to the tension in his home, the arguing, the harsh words between his parents, but on this cold, snowy night, something outside caught his attention. As the sounds of his parents' voices grew louder, Luke pressed his small face against the fogged-up window, peering into the darkness. What he saw next would pull him out of the house, away from the chaos he had come to expect, and into something that would forever alter his view of the world. A large German shepherd lay motionless in the road, blood staining the pure white snow beneath it. The animal was hurt, barely alive, and no one had stopped to help. But Luke didn't hesitate. His heart knew what needed to be done. The small boy, despite his fears and the cold, ventured out into the night, determined to save the dog. Luke didn't have the tools or knowledge, but he had something much stronger, compassion. And as he knelt beside the injured dog, whispering words of comfort, the miracle that followed would leave everyone around him in awe. This is the story of a young boy's courage, a dog's fight for survival, and the powerful bond that formed when two souls found each other in a time of need. Stay tuned to hear how one act of kindness changed everything. This is Acts of Kindness Stories. Luke had no idea that just a few steps from his door, a life hung in the balance. The snow had begun falling heavily, thick flakes descending and covering everything in white. Inside, the warmth of his home felt distant as his parents argued in the kitchen, voices rising and falling like waves in a storm. Luke had seen it all before, the shouting, the hurtful words, but tonight something outside caught his attention. It started with the sound of tires screeching, a horrific sound that sent a shiver down his spine. A truck came speeding down their street, its tires spinning wildly as it swerved to regain control. The world stopped for a second, and the next thing Luke heard was a loud thud, followed by the screech of the truck's brakes. It was the kind of sound that makes your heart stop, the kind that makes you hold your breath. And then, just like that, the truck was gone, disappearing into the night with only the echo of its taillights fading away. Luke's heart raced in his chest. He didn't understand all of what was happening, but he knew something was wrong. His parents hadn't heard it. They were too wrapped up in their argument. But Luke had heard it, and a part of him knew that the world outside had changed in that single moment. He couldn't ignore it. He had to see what had happened. His mother's voice came from the kitchen, harsh and irritated. "You can't keep doing this, Mark. You're never here, and when you are, it's like we're bothering you." Luke's small fingers traced patterns on the fogged-up window, his eyes darting between the snowflakes falling gently outside and the sound of his parents' heated discussion. He didn't want to hear it anymore, so he counted the snowflakes that fell past the window, hoping the quiet would drown out the noise inside. But then, the headlights cut through the night like two glowing eyes, and Luke's attention snapped back to the street. The truck had left behind more than just a tire skid in the snow. It had left something else. A dark shape lay motionless in the middle of the road. Luke's heart pounded as he squinted through the window, his breath fogging up the glass. It was a dog, a large German shepherd. But it wasn't moving. Its chest barely rose and fell, and there was something dark spreading in the snow beneath it. Blood. Luke didn't even have to think. Without a second of hesitation, he grabbed his coat and rushed out the door. The cold hit him like a wall. His thin pajamas did nothing to protect him from the biting wind, but he barely noticed. He had to get to that dog. He had to help it. The front door clicked shut behind him as Luke hurried down the steps, his boots crunching in the snow as he made his way toward the injured animal. At first, the street was silent, the only sound the faint hiss of snowflakes landing on the ground. But as he stepped closer, the shape on the road came into focus. The German shepherd lay on its side, its eyes closed, barely breathing. Luke stopped a few feet away, frozen in fear. He had never seen anything like this before, so helpless, so still. But he couldn't turn back. His small voice broke the silence, trembling. "Are you okay?" he whispered. The dog didn't move, its chest rising and falling in shallow, erratic breaths. Luke took a few more steps, inching closer. He could see the blood now, dark and terrifying against the pure white snow. Still, the dog didn't respond. Luke's fingers hovered above its head, unsure of what to do. He had been taught never to touch strange animals. But this was different. This dog needed him. He couldn't walk away. His hand gently brushed the dog's fur, feeling its coldness beneath his touch. "It's okay," Luke whispered, although he wasn't sure it was true. "I'm here now. I won't leave you." To his surprise, the dog let out a weak, pitiful whimper. Luke's heart skipped a beat. The dog was alive. It was asking for help. "I'll be right back," Luke promised softly, his small hand resting gently on the dog's head. He stood, his legs stiff from kneeling in the snow. His mind raced. He couldn't do this alone. He needed his mom. As he ran back toward the house, the cold bit at his cheeks, and the snow crunched beneath his boots. His breath came in short puffs, vanishing into the night. He had to get inside. He had to make them listen. Bursting through the door, Luke called out, "Mom! Mom!" His voice shook with urgency. His mother was pacing the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear. Luke tugged at her sleeve, desperation filling his voice. "Mom, there's a dog outside. It's hurt really bad. It got hit by a truck." She barely looked at him, her back still turned as she argued with someone on the phone. "Luke, what are you doing outside?" she snapped. "And you're tracking snow all over the floor. Go take your boots off right now." "But Mom, the dog." Luke's words tumbled out in a rush, his eyes filling with tears. "It's bleeding. It's dying." His mother paused, irritation flashing across her face. "Luke, take off your boots. I don't want to hear about any dog." The frustration in Luke's chest flared, but his father's voice from the other room interrupted. "What's all this noise about?" "Luke went outside without asking," his mom explained coldly. "Now he's making up stories about some dog." Luke didn't care about their disbelief. His mind was on the dog. The dog that was alone in the snow, struggling to survive. He pulled at his father's sleeve, tears streaming down his face. "Please, Dad, the dog's dying. It needs help." Mark shook his head, a tired sigh escaping his lips. "There are stray dogs all over this town, Luke. It's probably just one of those mutts from the old factory site. Nothing we can do about it." But Luke wouldn't back down. "But it's hurt. It's bleeding in the snow." His father's response was cold. "Nature takes care of itself. If it's really that bad, it'll be gone by morning." Luke stood frozen, the words cutting deep. He wanted to shout, to beg, but his parents were already turning away from him. His mom was back on the phone. His dad was back in the living room, his attention on the game. Luke wiped his eyes with his sleeve and glanced back toward the door. They weren't going to help, but he could. He had to. Quietly, he slipped out the door again, his boots crunching in the snow. The cold gnawed at him, but he didn't care. He had a promise to keep. The dog needed him. When he returned to the road, the dog was still there, its chest rising and falling, slow and shallow. Luke could feel the fear building up in his chest, but he knelt next to the animal again, speaking softly. "Don't worry. I won't leave you. I'll help you." The dog's eyes fluttered open, locking with Luke's for a brief moment. He could see the struggle in those eyes. Recognition, understanding. The dog wasn't ready to give up yet. Luke looked around, his heart racing. He couldn't carry the dog inside. His parents wouldn't let him. But there was the old shed in the backyard, the one his dad never used anymore. It wasn't warm, but it would protect the dog from the wind and snow. With newfound determination, Luke grabbed hold of the dog's front legs, trying to pull it across the snow. It was heavy, too heavy, and every movement made the dog whimper in pain. But Luke refused to stop. Inch by inch, He dragged the dog closer to the shed. It felt like hours, but finally Luke reached the shed, the door creaking open with a desperate shove. He pulled the dog inside, laying it gently on the floor. The cold didn't matter now. He wasn't leaving. "I'll be back," Luke promised, his voice breaking. "You're safe now." As Luke left to find more help, he didn't know if the dog would make it through the night. But he knew one thing: he wasn't giving up. Not now. Not ever. Back inside, his parents remained unaware of the life that was fighting to survive just outside. After weeks of uncertainty and hope, Max's journey finally led him back to where he belonged. As he recovered, the bond between Luke and Max grew stronger with each passing day. Mark and Anna, though uncertain at first, saw the transformation in their son and in Max. The once guarded, fearful dog now trusted them again, thanks to the love and care he had received. For Luke, it was more than just a new pet. It was the family he had always dreamed of. A family that was whole again, and a dog who would never be abandoned. The day Max came home was a turning point for the Wilson family. They saw how quickly life can change, how love and compassion can heal even the deepest wounds. It wasn't just Max who had found his way home. It was their whole family, united once again, ready to move forward together. But even with all the healing that had taken place, there were still questions lingering in the air. Luke, with his unwavering belief, had brought Max back to life, and now it was clear that the love and loyalty of an animal were things that could not be underestimated. Max had never given up on his family, no matter how long he had been lost, no matter the hardships he had faced. He had kept fighting because he knew that somewhere out there someone would come for him. That night, as the family sat together, Max lay at Luke's feet, content, trusting, and finally home. The dog had found his way back to them, but it wasn't just a story of survival. It was a story of healing, of love triumphing over neglect, of hope outlasting despair. Now, Luke and his family will never take their bond for granted again. And as for Max, he will never have to wonder where home is again. If this story of courage, love, and the unbreakable bond between a boy and his dog touched your heart, please like, share, and comment below. Share your own stories of kindness and loyalty, because stories like these remind us that good things happen when we believe in each other. Let's make Acts of Kindness stories reach 10,000 subscribers, so we can continue sharing real-life stories that inspire us all to be better, kinder, and more compassionate every day. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories.